we walked up on that deer and I was like,
Oh,
holy crap.
take us through Jesse's hunt, because he killed an absolute giant, most likely a record book buck down there, right?
I think he's waning in the top 2, top 3 for the whole state overall for archery.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast powered by DeerCast, and we sipping on
That first Phorm energy, you need some this morning.
I do, yeah. Running a little bit slow. I've been burning the midnight oil, like going out and doing final sets and putting up some safe lines.
Yeah.
And I've got a really nice 10-pointer coming through on a property I'm calling Buck Valley.
Ooh.
You're Matt Drury, by the way.
Yeah, you're Tim Chelsvik.
Sorry about that,
Yeah,
everybody.
that's right.
As if people need to know.
That's right.
It's a global show.
Just according to Mike Kehoe.
But this new property, 200 feet of elevation loss from where I park to where I hunt. And it's like, I don't know, it's super, super steep. So getting a deer out of there is going to be like an elk hunt.
Get a shot of that first Phorm energy before you jump in.
That's right. But hauling, I put a clover plot in down there. So hauling fertilizer and lime and the seed, like everything. It's been a labor of love.
Getting the workout in.
Yeah.
Well, we could dive into that. Let's do it on the next episode. I want to hear all about it. But on this episode, man, we got a good guest with us, and I want to dive right into it.
We've got returning guest Chris Janson. Chris is a platinum selling recording artist. What You See Is What You Get. One of his newer songs. Like I love that freaking song.
Yeah, it's catchy. All the stuff's catchy. Chris, what's up, man?
Wow, man. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm a repeat customer. Remember the first time I said I'd never really do a lot of podcasts and things. It just wasn't my vibe, but I love being with you guys. Of course, I'm a big fan, and I watch this show, so thank you. And having a great day, and thanks for the compliment on What You See Is What You Get. Really do appreciate that. We're in the 20s on the chart, so we're in the countdown phase of trying to get to number 1 again. So we're feeling pretty blessed, but man, it's hunting season. So that's besides my family, that's the number 1 thing that takes the spot in my life.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I love about him. And that's pretty much in the song too, by the way.
Well, yeah. Somehow you finagled The Rock to get in on your music video. How does that work?
Well, he loves to fish, man. He's like a big time bass fisherman. He's one of us. He's a great guy. And here's how it works. I believe in this world that you have to speak it into existence. I know that sounds hokey pokey to some people, and I know it sounds a little out there, but man, if I weren't out there, so to speak, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, success wise. So I don't mind pushing the boundaries and just asking people to do things. And so I met The Rock in 2022, and he said, man, I hope we get to do something together someday. And, you know, for most people, that might just be one of those things, a blip in the wind, and you never speak again. But we kept in touch, and we both kept that relationship alive via phone. And when What You See Is What You Get came across the radar as far as going to be the next single, I thought, you know what? He's a What You See Is What You Get kind of guy. At least he seems like it, and it turns out he very much is. I'm just going to ask him if he'd like to be in the video and kind of dip his toe in country music a little bit, and more than just being a fan. And he said yes. It was an immediate yes. And so we filmed the video. We started shooting. You know, I've shot half of it in Bass Pro Shops in Nashville, which was really for my part and for my pleasure. But then the other part with The Rock, we shot down in Dallas, Texas, outside of Dallas in Mesquite, at the arena. And he rented a truck and brought over to the shoot, and we just cut donuts all day and had a good time, played some guitar, and just had a really good, genuine time. And you know, it's interesting with the title of the song, What You See Is What You Get. It is very much factual of how we shot the video. It appears we're having fun. And that's true. We weren't acting. It's weird. You take one of the biggest actors, biggest stars in the world, who's used to acting all the time, and he doesn't act at all. And we're just being ourselves. And I think that's why the video is relatable. I know that's why the song is relatable. And you know, it's fun, and it makes me feel good. And rolling into fall, it kind of gives me all the vibes for hunting season. And like Matt said, I mean, I'm definitely a What You See Is What You Get kind of guy. I never hold anything back, and I just go full force at life all the time. That's how I go at deer hunting too, and any kind of hunting. I'm about to go elk hunting, I take it full force. You got to speak these things. If you literally go into it saying, oh, we're probably not going to see much. Oh, we may not get something. You're probably not going to get anything, and you're probably not going to see much. But if you go into it saying, I'm going to plant the right stuff, I'm going to hang the right sets, I'm going to be as quiet as I can, I'm going to get the right gear, I'm going to keep it as simple as I can and do it just like the Native Americans did it, man. Just hold nothing back and get after it and be a predator. Get out there and hunt and get it done. You speak it, you're going to have good success every time.
I'm going to kill a 330-inch bull in Idaho.
So Matt and I were fortunate enough to have dinner with Kevin Van Dam and Roland Martin last year. Well, at the Bass Pro opening there in Sunset Hills that you played at, Chris.
Yeah.
And the number one thing both those guys said for what they attributed their success to was confidence. Go in knowing that this bait is going to work for you. This cast is going to work for you. Whatever it is, it's confidence and just believing that it's going to happen.
It can be
every time. I totally agree with that, and I've loved both of those guys, as you know, and have become very close to them over the years. And I can tell you from experience, being with another pro fisherman myself, being with Johnny Morris on a boat, you could be catching 0 fish, but every single cast, he says, it's about to happen right now. It's going to happen right now. And then when it happens, you're excited. So that's the way that I train my mind to work. Otherwise, man, we are all going to be just living in total depression and fear of what could have been. And I'm just not willing to do that, man. We have so much. I see the American flag hanging in your studio there. May I say that we live in the greatest country on the face of the planet. Where else can you hunt whitetails, fish with Kevin Van Dam, Roland Martin, Johnny Morris? Where else can you fish for largemouth bass like you can here? You can't. You can't chase whitetails anywhere like you can here. You can't chase elk anywhere like you can here. So we're pretty blessed, guys. And you gotta have the competence, man. And it's not cocky, which is sometimes people, for people who have a loser's attitude, they look at the competence as cocky.
Yeah.
I look at that as, man, whoever is saying something like that, whether it be Roland, Van Dam, me, whoever it is, I look at that and I go, man, that's inspiring. That fires me up. You're exactly right. I would not have killed the Boone and Crockett deer that I've been able to harvest over the years without having that kind of attitude. You just got to get in there and get it done.
It is interesting because, I've like hanging out with a guy like Jim Tomey or Adam Wainwright. Those guys are ultra positive in camp all the time, happy-go-lucky. Yes. And you always think, God, this guy's lucky. But he's not lucky necessarily as maybe what you're saying. He's willing it into existence, and if you say it enough, sooner or later, you're going to hit the home run or you're going to strike out the guy at the bottom of the ninth. And, it's like, I told you, I said it was going to happen this way. So that confidence is key, man.
Hey, Bible says if you pray hard enough, based in so many words, it doesn't say exactly like this, but this is how I relate to it. Bible says if you pray hard, you work hard, you're going to get the answers from God, man. And I'm living proof of a guy who has prayed his way through life, worked so hard in life at everything that I do, and you get rewarded for it, man. I'm telling you, you gotta stay positive. Otherwise, what else do we have? We have one choice when we wake up. We can either make it a good day, or we can make it what it's probably going to be, a not so great day. And we have the choice to change the narrative. I wrote that into a song too, in Good Vibes, a couple years ago, and which turned out to be a big hit. And you got to change the narrative, man. And I change my narrative every single day. I
love it. I love the positivity. And so one of the reasons I wanted to have you on was kind of to touch on some of that success in the deer woods. You live down there in Tennessee, of course, and they got that early season that opens up. And so you guys are fortunate enough to be able to hunt deer while they're still in velvet. And I don't know of anyone that had a better start to the season than your son, Jesse, and yourself to start that Tennessee season. Take us through Jesse's hunt, because he killed an absolute giant, an actual, most likely a record book buck down there, right?
This is by far going to be the top archery velvet deer as of now. And definitely by far going to be the top youth velvet buck. Now, they don't have a category for scoring for that as of yet. Hopefully they will by the time next year rolls around. And I would say right now, I think he's waning in the top 2, top 3 for the whole state overall for archery. I will go ahead and say right off the bat, my kid is 10 years old. He does shoot a normal compound bow, and he's a total badass, and he gets it done, and he's practicing real hard. But the morning that we got to go out and harvest this deer, and we were so blessed to be able to do so, he said, "I think I'm going to take my real bow." I said, "Like hell, you're not. We're taking that crossbow because you get one shot at a deer like this." Yeah. And we're hunting tight quarters. You get one shot or it's going to be over. And so he understood. So, and you know what? Hey, a harvest is a harvest no matter what you're getting it with. And as long as you're doing it the right way, I'm all for it. So Same. I'm the kind of guy when gun season rolls around, I'm ready to get a rifle in my hand. But so the bottom line is we've been watching this deer for 2 years now. And I always say I've been growing this deer like we all talk about, right? Yeah. I've been growing this deer, Well, the deer's been growing himself. Last year, he was a mid 140s at best, and he blew up into a 190 and 7/8 deer over the last year. I don't know if that's the mineral content in the soil, if it's the constant consistency of the trophy rocks and the tiny little food plots that I planted for him. And man, it's just really as simple as this. I run those cameras that come to my phone all the time, so we're watching this stuff in real time, right? And about June-ish, May, June, Jesse saw him on camera because I got the app logged onto his phone too. So he comes home from school and he gets his phone and he goes, "Oh, Dad, you gotta let me shoot this deer." And of course I look at it and I go, "Crap, man, that's the deer I've been saving for myself for 2 years, right? I've been waiting on him to get right." And he's 5 years. Excuse me, he's like 5, 6 years old this year. I think 5, probably conservatively speaking, but. Man, when you got a kid who loves to do the hunting and fishing like my kid does, and I've got 4 awesome kids, but Jesse's really my hunting and fishing guy. When you got somebody who loves it like he does, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna steal that joy from him. And it's not about me anymore. And as a dad, I can tell you, and a lot of fathers out there will understand. I don't know. I don't even have that in my heart anymore. It doesn't. Watching him take that buck down and get so blessed to do it in such a short amount of time before school, by the way, on a school day,
even better.
That's a God thing through and through. And those moments are to be celebrated. And I'll tell you, it was one of the greatest hunting moments of my life. It was as if it was as if I'm the one who harvested the deer myself. And I just couldn't be more grateful. And so the bottom line is he came into a small food plot with a trophy rock that I've literally refreshed a new trophy rock over the last 3 years. So there's a dip in the ground, a hole in the ground. And when it gets to this time of year, because you can't bait in Tennessee, I go in and get the crushed kind. So at least they have something they could palatably eat or chew, the deer, if they're going to do it at all. Yeah. Well, turns out a couple of the does and that deer and another smaller buck, they were eating those little pebble trophy rocks. So they're just eating straight salt. We've been in kind of a drought, so I don't know what that means. I figured they'd be off of it and trying to get to water.
I was going to ask, is that an excused absence day then for Jesse?
I would have not gone to school.
He shot the deer at 7:22. I want to say it was 7:22, I think. So he wasn't late at all. Or maybe it was a little earlier than that. But anyway, the point is I got into school. And I'll have to look back at my harvest log. But anyway, I got into school and he wasn't absent or anything. And we took the deer to the taxidermist and the whole deal. Like we did everything in one swoop before we went to school. So he went to school. And if anybody said, "What'd you do today?" That's what he said. "Well, I just shot a 190-inch deer, with my dad." But it was so remarkable. We belly crawled into that blind. We set in an old traditional, just an old bottomland ground blind, just a pop-up blind. Uh-huh. And had some shooting sticks in there. And Jesse was literally, you guys got to hear this. This reminds me of me and probably us when we were little. So I'm sitting in the back of the blind and I'm in black because I wanted to be shaded. And Jesse's kind of sitting in the front window. Now that deer came out around 30 yards away from that blind where he usually walks through. He's like a major pattern animal. For the last 3 years, he's done the same pattern literally consistently. And he's never once looked on my trail camera. He's never once looked over at that blind until the morning that we had the blind window open.
Yeah, well, sure.
Yep.
And he came out and he went, whoop, and he looks directly sideways. At that very moment, I'm not really paying attention. I'm like just kind of dozing off myself because we woke up at 4 freaking o'clock, and it's hot and mosquitoes are flying. And I'm watching. I'm just sort of chilling, and Jesse's little head's bobbing like this. And I said, Jesse, he's right there. And he said, what? And you never seen a kid jump up so quick and shuffle that crossbow. And I don't know how he did it, honestly, without the deer freaking out or running off, because he was already looking at the blind by the time I saw him.
Oh boy!
So it was just a God thing. It's all there is to it. And he put a great 30-yard shot, 30-yard shot, and the deer ran 50 yards and piled up, and it was just an unbelievable moment. Like I was flabbergasted when I walked up to it. I knew that we were hunting a 160 to 170, no problem. And by the way, if he had been a 120-inch deer, no problem. Sure. A trophy's a trophy to me and to Jesse. But we walked up on that deer, and I was like, "Oh, holy crap!" Like, this thing is way bigger than the camera was definitely lying. I don't rely on a camera anymore ever for nothing.
It's interesting because those cameras can make them, depending on the camera and the lens, the type of lens that they're using in the camera, it can kind of give you the shrinking feeling of, well, this deer, I don't know, is maybe a 150, and that's a great surprise. Walking up, you're like, holy cow, he's a 190. But I should say, like, this isn't on 1,000 acres. It's not even on 100 acres. This is a very small piece of ground that you have, right?
Yeah. So I have lots of properties that I've collected, bought and sold, refinished, redone over the years. And that's kind of like me and Kelly's hobby. And this one came off of a small property of a house that we redid and flipped. And I still kept permission to hunt. And that was part of the contingency for the sale. And then, nice. and then the neighbor is super kind and lets us hunt as well. So we sort of have a dual avenue to get it done. However, it's still under 20 acres. So, this deer he was a pocketed deer. He likely grew up right there. I think he was born right there. He probably grew up right there. That was definitely his home turf. That's the third deer over 160 that I've taken off of that 20-acre spot.
That's awesome. Yeah, don't ever get rid of that spot. I hope that contingency was ironclad. That's a great spot to have.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, and it's just I just love to hunt, man. I just love to hunt, and I've been fortunate to be able to own property, which is a hard thing to do, especially now in this economy. It's a hard thing to do unless you're generationally brought into it. Yeah. And I just, for anybody out there watching this who's, grew up like I did, and you're a public land guy, man, there ain't no shame in that, just so you know. And I don't ever want to come across as the guy that's like bragging about shooting deer on my own property kind of guy, but I do take a lot of pride in it. I put a lot of time into these things. I plant for it. I learned the food plot stuff from your dad and uncle. So, years ago, they were some of the OGs of the food plot business. And making that really happen, where a lot of us didn't think a thing of it growing up. You just go to the nearest acorn flat or the nearest crop field, and that's where you hunt. And you just try to make it happen. But we plant little micro plots, if you will. I call them micro plots. I mean, less than an acre. Yeah. And those, I'll tell you, this is not a promo for Trophy Rock, but I'm just saying that that is a pretty good product, and it's worked better for me than just your average run of the mill co-op salt block. Yeah. And when you live in a no bait state, you got to do what you can to try to keep deer in there, because it's virtually impossible any other way. Unless you have, which we do, unless you have a water source that was dwindling at this point with the drought we've been going through, and you have a good source of mineral like that, with the salt and I don't know, it just worked. I mean, the acorns are dropping a little early this year because it's been so dry. Yeah, it has. So that's good. But where we hunted this deer and where Jesse took this deer, this is not like by cropland or anything. So it's in the country, but it's not next to any ag field. So it was a bit different, for us.
I'm thinking about the people that buy the house in like 2 or 3 generations, and part of the sale is also country superstar Chris Janson and his family must be allowed to hunt deer in your backyard. Is that
Don't think for one second that I wouldn't do that and make right on it too, buddy. I can promise you that.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I don't care. I do not care. I've the last 3 properties I've sold, I've kept hunting rights to.
You're in a good area then, where people don't know about hunting. I can't believe anybody's buying these places.
Buy a house where like Steve Warner is allowed to come by and work on cars in your garage.
Yeah, no shit.
Okay. That's fine by me.
So
exactly.
Okay, so that was that opening day, right?
Yeah, that was the opening morning of the Velvet Hunt. Yes.
Okay, so then fast forward another 2 days, and then
the last evening of it. Yeah.
And then you had an opportunity, correct?
I did. So I got into one stand on one property about 7 minutes from where I live, and I wasn't seeing much. And then it just kind of went dark, and it was like nothing. And we're sitting there, we're sweating our butt off. I mean, we were in a enclosed blind, like, one of the muddy blinds, and it was hot.
Yeah.
So
it gets hot.
And when I say went dark, I'm talking about like, man, we were pulling the shades. It was getting hot. The deer were not moving. Here comes 2 coyotes. I said, all right, we got to get out of here. So we got out of there. We still had a lot of daylight left. So it was only 7 minutes-ish back to where we were going, and not a lot of traffic. So we rushed back over to the house. I thought, well, maybe there'll be something out in my home field, which is essentially my backyard, if you will. And I got some stands out there, and I thought maybe I'll just slip up in something like that. Well, in the meantime, in between there and there, I had a camera go off.
Oh.
And one of my target bucks that I've also been passing for the last 2 years. He's nowhere near the caliber of Jesse's deer by any means. He's not even close, but I think he's kind of peaked out now. Well, I guess he did. I mean, I shot him, but I think he peaked out at this point, and he's like a mid 150s kind of deer. Great big buck.
Yeah.
A nice shooter. A solid 5-year-old deer. And I got a lot of history with him. Well, he was on the camera. And so I knew that if I slipped in at a certain wind and a certain vantage point, kind of down here and over here, that I may have a chance before he comes out into the open. And I'll be dang if he didn't. And he did with his whole little bachelor group. They came rolling off of the acorn flat out into the open until they have an open spot until they get into the next, brushy section of the property. So I slipped into that stand. It was also a ground blind. And same thing, had my bow, watched him on the camera. I knew it was going to be a matter of time. It was either going to be dark or it was going to be right at it. He came out. I had enough shooting light legally left, swapped one in there. I thought it was a good shot. He did the mule kick. Everything was great. I'm high-fiving. Jesse's with me. We're high-fiving. It's great. Everything's just fabulous. And go back a couple hours later, like 1 speck of blood. And then 50 yards up, 2 specks of blood. And I'm like, perfect. So I said, well, maybe maybe I made a bad shot. So we waited the night and went back in the next morning. I found, of course, when you hunt in the velvet season or any kind of hot weather, the ants are on it immediately. So virtually it's just like getting a bad rain. There's no blood trail to be spoken of, really. So you got to look like an old school tracking dog. You got to look for broken limbs. You got to look for leaves busted up. You got to look for all that stuff. And anyway, I did that for the next couple days, and nothing. I took my bloodhound in there, and nothing. And then me and Jesse went in on the final afternoon, and I thought, I'm just going to give it up. But I saw a good amount of buzzards flying kind of over the general area of that oak flat that I mentioned that the deer came off of originally. And so a lot of times, as you guys know, whenever you harvest a deer and he runs a little ways, he'll run back to his bedroom.
Yeah.
Or wherever he was when he feels safe. And that's exactly what he did. And those buzzards actually led me right to him. They would fly in the sky and then they'd disappear. Of course, we're walking around the woods, so we're looking up going, where are the buzzards going?
Yeah.
Well, they were swooping down and they were landing on the limbs, and they were being really quiet. And Jesse was walking about 30, 40 yards in front of me, and all of a sudden he hears a bird take off, and he said, stop. And I said, okay, what's up? And I was actually in the moment, I wasn't paying attention because I was using that deer cast track, the thing that you helped me get set up.
Yeah.
Matt. I'm serious. I was watching my tracks going, how in the world have I not walked up on this deer yet? I mean, I use those green tracing steps, and I have covered every piece of dirt here.
On
every piece.
With the path tracker?
Yes. Yeah. And I saved my tracks from the last couple days before that. So I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? And right about that time, Jesse heard that bird fly, walked over the little crest, and the one spot, literally the one where my tracker didn't walk through, that's where he was laying.
That's a frustrating feeling. You're happy,
Yeah.
You're relieved that you found him, but man, that's a frustrating feeling because you're like, man, I've walked all over this place. And that's especially in the early season before the leaves are off and it's all grown up. Like it's hard
terrible.
to see, if the woods are thick, it's hard to find these things if you don't have a blood trail. So you literally had to use everything in your back pocket, all the knowledge you've learned through the years, the buzzards and, looking for broken limbs and branches. And I mean, it's a testament to sticking with it and finding it because, after a couple of days of searching, some people will be like, oh, maybe he's not dead, But when you have that gut feeling, you're like, man, I know it was a decent shot. By the way, where was the shot? It was decent, wasn't it?
It was a not a fabulous shot, but yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a definite kill shot. The deer definitely went down that evening.
Yeah.
He was done that day. So he was quartering to me a little bit. The blind that I was sitting at was downhill a bit from him. So I was actually shooting up at an angle, which is fine. I've shot deer out of that blind before. It's no problem. Shot turkeys out of that blind too. And it's been there for years, but I was shooting a little uphill. So it went in, quartered to, hit the opposing shoulder, flopped back through the cavity, and came out down in the paunch, right below in the low gut, right before his back leg. So it was a definite kill shot. But man, a kill shot's a kill shot. But I love these animals and I honor the animal, and I'd like to call myself a great hunter to the most part and a good conservation minded person. So it hurt my heart to not be able to find that deer. And it's not just about the rack, man. It's about the whole thing. I mean, I'm not just trophy hunting. I'm hunting because this is part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. And I would not be the same without the privilege. So I wasn't going to give up on that deer. I didn't care what it took. And it was about to get to the point where I was going to have to start knocking on neighbors' doors down the roads here in the county and going, hey, my property backs up to this or that. Is it okay if I cross the line? Which I'm sure they would have been fine with, but still, most people don't know about the velvet season, so that would have looked a little weird.
Yeah.
And but all in all, man, we prayed our way through it. And if you listen to me and Jesse out there in the woods, y'all would, well, actually, people who watch this podcast would not laugh at me, but man, the general person on the street would laugh and look at me like, what a weirdo, because we're walking through the woods all the time, just literally talking out loud. Jesus, just help us get this deer. Just, man, Lord, just help us find this buck, and I'm thinking, it's certain points I stop and I go, are we crazy? But we're not. We found the deer.
Good deal. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you said, you just feel terrible when it happens to you. It's happened to most people who've bow hunted, in their lives, and you're just like, God, you just feel terrible about it, and you feel pretty helpless when you're not finding it, and you're calling in everybody. We had mentioned maybe trying like a thermal drone, but you can't do that in that state, and so it's just like, God, you're trying to do everything you can to find the deer. I know the feeling, unfortunately, and when you don't find them, it's even worse because it's the unknown of like, I'm pretty sure he's dead, but I just don't know where.
And this is the thing that drives me nuts online when someone asks for help on finding a deer. you get all the people that are like, well, make a better shot next time.
Thanks.
Like if you've hunted
Captain
long
Obvious.
enough, like you should have some empathy and know that sometimes things happen that are out of your control. And like sometimes you just misjudge, but this is not the time for casting judgment.
Yeah. Keep your opinion to yourself.
And those like exit wounds that come out in the paunch area, or even entry wounds for that matter, that gets covered up by entrails, and there's just it's just not good blood back there.
Yeah, likely he was bleeding just fine, but it wasn't getting out. You know, it was in the body cavity.
Yeah,
which
it was filling the cavity. I had a friend of mine who's an investigative detector. So stupid. A detective with law enforcement, and he works these cases all the time. And very unfortunate cases, but he's really good at his job. And so I had him on the phone. I was texting back and forth with you guys and getting your thoughts and opinions and watching the deer cast. That, by the way, may I say that deer cast is an incredible tool. That track is an incredible tool when you can move the target on the animal and watch videos. That has been extremely helpful to me. That has helped me. That's actually helped me find a lot of deer. I mean, I can't brag about that enough. That's some incredible technology, and it's really well done because you don't just get one video to reference by. You get a lot of videos to reference by, and man, I've used that a lot. So thank you. But
appreciate that.
You're welcome. I use that. I use you guys, and use a lot of the Lord. I use my little boy out there with his good sense of just everything. He's a great tracker and a great hunter all around.
All, Jesse.
Yeah,
he's really ate up.
My
with
buddy, the detective, I kept calling him, and he was giving me little hints of what to look for, and all of those things combined, it came together. And so then you got to get to the point of a lot of folks wouldn't think about they shoot a deer, they don't find it for whenever, and they never tag it in. And I'm like, well, I want to mount this thing, and like I'm gonna celebrate this harvest. So the TWRA was so cool. I told him a story, I explained everything to him, and so I said, I'm gonna tag this deer in 2 days later, or 2 or 3 days later, and I said, now don't red flag me. I didn't shoot this deer out of season. I shot him the last night of season. Just found him, and they were really cool. Him in, everything was golden. Took him over to the taxidermist. His skull's getting cleaned up now. I'm gonna do a nice Euro mount like I see behind you guys, and we'll have another celebration. And the good news is the deer was already half out of velvet already, so it's not like some kind of big loss if you love the velvet.
Yeah. So how's that work down there in Tennessee? If you kill early season velvet, is there another season for you then, like a regular season, or are you tagged? Like I don't know how many buck tags you get down there.
You get 2 bucks now. But that does count as one of your buck tags. Now, if you harvest both of your bucks during the velvet season, you're done.
Oh wow!
Oh, so you can kill 2 bucks during that season.
Yeah, it's just $1 a day. $1 a day, $2 for the year. I believe it's 3 does a day. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's still right. But yeah, so I got 1 tag left. I got 1 deer in mind, and unless I see something that just totally trumps him. That's the one I'm going for, and I haven't seen him in daylight yet. He's the only deer that shows up on those cameras, not during the day.
Yeah.
So that's how you know he's a good one.
Yeah, let the chess match begin, and hopefully we'll get a good early October or even late September, a good cold front early October before they get in the rut and get all kooky. That might be your chance on those micro plots you're talking about.
Yep, absolutely. So I love doing that, man. I enjoy, I'm not a farmer, but I love trying to be an amateur farmer. And I really, you know what I'm saying? I love hooking up a tractor and a disc and putting in my own plots. And there's something to be really said for that. For guys who are getting it out there, girls who are getting out there and getting it done. And hey, man, putting the work in once you make the harvest or whatever animal it may be. I mean, I don't care if it's doves, it's a harvest is a harvest, man. It's all part of God's creation. It's all a blessing. And if you're able to do that and reap the fruits of your labor, that's to me, that's what it's all about.
Speaking of doves, did you go out and do any dove hunting there in the opener? I mean, in that,
you dang right. So
yeah.
We weren't here on the opening day. We were in New York City. I was doing Fox and Friends and we were working up there, playing a lot of shows, had some great concerts. So we came back a couple days after the season started, of course. And as soon as we landed, we went right to the dove field, and we flew back a couple hours early on purpose. We got right to the dove field, me and Jesse, and yep, we shot a limit first day, and we've been trying to stay out there after them, but we hunt them right here at the house and at our properties, and you got to stay consistent on them, but you can't get too overly consistent because then they won't keep flying in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a fun hunt. That looks like one that for a group of people, it's just a good time.
It's a blast. Bring a lot of shells.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, all right. So you mentioned it a little bit earlier. You're getting ready to head out for an elk hunt with JP and Johnny Morris. Where are y'all headed to? What state?
we're going to Colorado, and I've been fortunate to be on a yearly hunting trip with these guys for the last couple of years. My best friends in life, and it's a real blessing for me. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Jesse will be right there with me. Jesse's my elk caller. He calls for me and does the high pitched bugling because his voice hasn't changed yet, so it's perfect. And he gets out there and gets it done. And we've had a good success rate every year. And we're taking a stick and string and going to get out there and try to get it done once again. Awesome, man. That's a fun trip. JP just posted on Instagram the other day. He posted a shot. It looked like it was either, I think it was at dusk or something. And a guy was bugling. You could see the mountains behind him, and guys making the call. And it looked awesome. It sounded awesome. It's one of those things that just gets you fired up and ready to go. And I think that's a bucket list trip. So it's cool you get to go with those guys and spend it, a yearly tradition. Well, I thank you, and I agree, and it's a big blessing to me, man. It's so much more than just hunting the elk. It's spending time with them, and it's a brotherhood at this point, and I'm really thankful for it. And one thing I love about the Bass Pro crew, and why I'm so proud to be a Bass Pro man myself, is that they're family first, and my family is welcome. And I don't do anything in my life if my family's not welcome with me, then you don't get me. And my family is always welcome and travels with me and goes on the expedition with me. And, I'm really proud to be in camp with everybody, more so because of that, because, it's important to feel at home when you're off hunting, man. And I feel right at home. That's awesome.
The next time we have Chris on, you should have all your kids around and like crawling over you and stuff.
Well, we could do it. Jesse was so pissed that he's not on this podcast this morning. I'm going to be honest with you. I took him to school and I said, "Hey, what are you doing today?" And I was like, "Well, I'm getting ready to do the Drury Outdoors podcast." He's like, "Shut up." I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Dang it, Dad, cancel it so I can do it with you." And I was like, "I'm not canceling it."
Next time.
One of these days, one of these days, I said, "They'll have you on. Oh, yeah. No problem." Like, no problem. So he's counting on it. He's probably thinking, wait, so you're doing a podcast. You're talking about my deer and I'm not on it. I told him, I said, "I'm going to talk all about you and talk about your buck." And anyway, he got out of the car and literally as he was shutting the door in the car rider line 45 minutes ago, he goes, "Cancel it. Bye, I love you."
I think you work for him. I think you're his manager.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely work for our kids. Believe me. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's universal.
No matter what you do in life. I wish I could disagree, but I can't.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on. What shows do you got coming up next? Do you want to plug the next couple events before you jump off here?
Absolutely. So I'm coming up to your guys' area actually in Illinois this coming weekend. So, but what town is it? I can't remember
Columbia
the exact town.
On Friday night, and I forget where you're at in Illinois.
Columbia, then McHenry. I was actually thinking about taking Sophie to the Columbia show.
Yeah, it's just right across the Mississippi. It's a real close show for sure.
Well, so. you guys come to anything you want, no problem. Just text me on the side. But for people watching the show here today, I would encourage you to go to chrisjanson.com/tour. And you can find all the dates. Of course, on social media, like on Instagram, I'm the Chris Janson, the official, the Facebook, the whole thing, Twitter, X, the whole deal, TikTok, and then same for YouTube. But man, the last thing I'd like to say is not only come out to the live shows and come see us if you want a great time out there, as the guys mentioned earlier, with what you see is what you get. It's doing great on the radio, and every little bit helps from every fan across the board. I don't care who you are. I don't care how big you are in the entertainment business. Fans matter. Streaming, getting on there, playing those songs consistently matters. And I would appreciate all the hunting community rallying behind it as you have already, but rallying behind it in an even bigger way. What you see is what you get. Put that on your fall playlist. Put that on your getting ready to crush some big whitetails playlist. I don't care whatever it's called. Just get out there and get it done and play that song over and over and keep requesting it every chance you get. And even though I'm not officially a Drury team member, I already feel like I am. I feel like I have been. I feel like I've been one for years. I tell people all the time, if you are a real OG Drury Outdoors guy, then you've got a stack full of VHS tapes, and I've got them. And I've got them. That was in my stocking every year for Christmas growing up. And if they still made VHS tapes, that's the only thing that I still want. So I love you guys. I love being on this. I'm proud you asked. Thank you for listening to my long drawn out stories, but I'm not going to cut corners and cut to the chase and make them boring. If you want to hear real hunting stories, you got to listen to the real hunters out there, and you got to hear every little bit. I think that every little tidbit helps with people, man. And those velvet hunts are hard. So what can we do to make them happen? Early season deer in general are hard to hunt, and you got to plant right. If you can get your food plots to grow, which you can't, and you got to get
rain.
Sorry, that was a big old hornet sitting there on me. Oh. You got to get your trophy rocks in there. You got to get your salt. I don't know, just whatever happens, you got to get right with God. I can tell you that, and hopefully He blesses the hunt.
That's right.
Well, Chris, as someone who grew up on traditional country music and Merle and Buck and Clint Black, like I'm so thankful that you are keeping real country alive. So as much as you're encouraging us, I want to encourage you as a true country music fan to keep country alive. And I just so appreciate the heart and the passion behind the music that you're putting out.
It's got that outlaw country going. The good
Thanks,
stuff.
Man. Hey, the outlaw side of me is something that I couldn't get rid of if I tried, unfortunately. But I appreciate you saying that, Brother Tim. Thank you. And hey, man, you can count on me. I only want to do things that are authentic to me. And if it's not authentic to me, I don't want to do it. And that goes for everything in life. And that goes for just the way I get up and talk in the morning. That goes for talking on this podcast. Just try to be the best person you can be. And if you're going to make music, try to do the best you can. And that's always kind of been my way about it. But I appreciate you saying that and recognizing it. And you got it. You got my word. I'll keep it up.
Let's go.
Roll.
The only thing we got left to do with Mr. Janson is share hunting camp. We've talked about it for a couple years now. It's going to happen sooner or later, but that's the last piece of the puzzle here. And then it is official.
I'll bring my guitar.
I was going to even ask you, did you film Jesse or on that first kill, or was it happened too quick and you guys didn't have a chance to pull out the phone or anything?
So my phone was sitting on the ground upside down.
Yeah.
And Jesse's was sitting underneath his butt in the chair, in the blind chair. And that deer, like I said, he walked out so fast. And I'm being completely honest with you here, man. And I think anybody watching this would agree. You don't really expect that deer to probably walk out. I mean,
he doesn't
have anything to eat. So if you're catching the deer on camera, it's not like, oh, great, I've patterned into this camera or I've patterned into a salt lick. I mean, you're patterning, you're just collecting data, really.
Yeah.
You're catching him walking past a camera. You're catching him licking that rock every now and again. But it's just the likelihood of an actual big buck walking out in early season is pretty virtually impossible, in my opinion. So unless you know the pathway they're walking, that's the best thing. And we just happened to be on the pathway he was walking. And may I say this, I wish I'd filmed that. I regret that so bad that I didn't get it on film, but he walked out so darn fast, guys, that there was just no way to. If I had reached for anything and he had seen the slightest bit of movement.
You're toast.
And I'm sure he saw movement because Jesse was bobbing his head, falling asleep, and I was smacking Jesse in the shoulder going, hey, he's right there. And he's 30 yards away, man. It's not like he can't hear us.
Yeah, he's close.
And see us and smell us. So no, that was a drawn out answer, but I wish I'd filmed it, but I filmed it up here in my brain.
I was gonna say, you got it forever
I know exactly how it went down, and just what I told you is exactly what transpired. And it was a beautiful moment, and really just a true pleasure to watch. I mean, it was like, I can't believe that actually happened right
All's
then.
well that ends well.
Let's hope and pray that everybody gets an opportunity to say that. I can't believe that actually happened this fall. Because that's every day you go out and you're like, Jesus, this is a grind.
Why?
Why am I doing this? I actually was thinking that the other day as I was prepping my gear, and I'm like, man, summer went way too fast. Like, I feel like the season just ended. We just finished up editing the last episode of all the TV shows from last fall. So it's like, here we go. We're back, right back into this thing. And I'm sure, people around me are going to hate me by the end of the year. And it's just a grind.
It's a cycle. Yep.
It is a cycle. It can be vicious, but man, when things go right, like what you're talking about, it's just like, I'm on top of the world. That hadn't happened to me for about 4 years, but it can happen any year. This is the year.
We're going with confidence.
I'm speaking it into existence. Yes. This is the year. So,
you got to do it.
Let's go. Now I'm fired up, man. I'm ready for that hunt this weekend. You're going to Colorado Saturday. Yeah, I'm going to Idaho Saturday.
I think Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to it, man. When I get there, it's a family hangout, but man, we get right down to the nitty gritty too. And we get out there and it's bow only. So we get right to work and we get to go on at it, man. We only get a select couple of days, as you know, on those hunts. It's very, very just a select little window of time, and you got to get it done or you're not going to get it done. And I'm going to go after it hardcore.
So I have been trying to let you go here for 5 minutes now, but I'm going to ask you another question. So this is just for my sake. This is for my sake, because you've been archery elk hunting for a few years now. Any tips that you have, because that's what we're on, archery elk. It's a 5-day hunt, short window. I think we're going to be hitting it well. The weather's like lows in the low 30s, highs in the low 60s. The full moon's going to be coming around. So I think we're going to be hitting it right. Bugling should be good. But what are some tips as far as like the spot and stock aspect, or what would you any advice, parting shots that you have for me?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. I'm no expert. May I say that? I'm not a hunting expert. I'm just a poor kid from Missouri who grew up having to do it the hard way. And when you grow up like we did, you just got to learn to do it, man. I think the biggest tip I could give anybody, especially with a bow and arrow chasing an elk, they're a lot like turkeys. They call just like turkeys. They respond just like turkeys. Don't overcall to them. If you have a good guide with you, if you're fortunate enough to have a good guide with you, listen to the guide. If it weren't for my guide, Pat, who's a world-class hunter over the last couple of years, now he's not out there guiding me like some tourist, like pointing me every direction. Believe me, I'm getting in there doing all the hunting, but man, you have to learn too. I've only been hunting elk for like 5 years, and you got to learn. And I'm big on listening. So I would rather listen and learn. The biggest thing I've learned is they hunt like turkeys. See, that's kind of the first thing to know about them. And then secondly, don't be afraid to get aggressive. Get aggressive. If you're gonna get it done, you got to get aggressive. I have laid in fields in the middle of dusty, windy conditions with a whole herd of elk laying out there in front of me at 100 yards. And I have belly crawled for 6 and 7 hours at a time to get within 50 yards. I mean, you got to put in the work. You can't, it's not a canned hunt. It's not a canned thing where you just go out there, you get dropped off, an elk walks out and you shoot it with a 300 Win Mag. This is a bow and arrow. You got to get close. You got to play the wind. I think the wind is probably the biggest thing I would always tell people with everything. I don't care what it is, whatever kind of game animal it is. If you're not hunting the wind, you're not hunting correctly. That's it, period. So I'm a big advocate of that, and nothing fancy for me. I get out there. I usually I grab the local soil from wherever we're hunting in the area. I rub it all over my clothes. I rub it in my hair. I rub it all over. I basically take a dirt bath, and then I get right to it. And I don't mind crawling through ditches. I don't mind wading through water. I don't mind anything. I'll do whatever it takes to get the hunt finalized in the way I like it.
So then when the moment of truth comes, was the killer instinct just take over, the instinct part of it from the years of hunting? And it's like, when to go, when to draw, when to shoot.
Yes, absolutely. I'm also not a guy who, and people are going to watch this and probably disagree with this part. I think one of the biggest things that I'm guilty of in the past too, and a lot of people are guilty of, is we put so much emphasis on practicing and doing this and making sure we got the right gear on and we got this and this and that. Really, it's just about hunting. Think about the Native Americans. They didn't have anything. Rocks, sticks, and homemade strings. Everything was homemade. They just made it work. I don't need any of that fancy stuff to make it work, man. I just need equipment that works, and I need an elk to shoot at. Otherwise, I can close the deal. I don't sit and really get really analytical with my draws and all these kind of things and checking all this stuff. When you're in the moment, you don't have time for that crap. Range the animal. If you feel comfortable, dial it up and do it. Otherwise, wait until you can. Yeah. I mean, that's just how I've always been, just very cut and dry when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't like going out and shooting 60 reps the night before and wearing my arm out, because guess what? Then you get out there, oh man, I can shoot perfect at that target. Well, that target's moving. So in real life, it's totally different than shooting a still target in the yard. Mm-hmm. And you go out there, your arm's worn out, and then you don't feel like it. You get so dang shaky that you can't hold your bow back. I'm not that guy. I shoot 1, 2, 3 times to make sure the bow's not falling apart. And then I get out there and I get to hunting. And, you hope for the best, man. I don't care who you are. If you don't get nervous hunting, if you don't get shook up and shaken and freaked out, then you don't need to be doing it. And otherwise, if somebody tells you otherwise, they're just simply lying. I mean, I get so shook up, I can hardly breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the fun stuff.
One of my buddies is out in Colorado.
It's awesome.
Sitting in camp with a broken bow because he fell and his bowstring frayed, and it's unshootable. Oh, so he's like, the next time he can get into a shop is like a week away. He's that's helper in bow camp or in camp now.
Well, and that, I was thinking about that because I was a former Life and Eagle Scout, so it's trying to be prepared for this trip, and it's just like I have that stay afield string that Matthews gives you, but I don't have a backup string with me. And I thought, well, I'm going to take this, but I don't know what good it's going to do me if something actually happens to the string. Like, I'm scared to death that, in the airport travel and all that something's going to happen to the bow. I read a thread last night where a guy he said, you should also put a padlock on your cam, because a lot of times what happens is the freaking guys down below will draw your bow. He had his son's bow. Somebody drew his bow and dry fired it and blew the bow up. And he's like, so I would put a padlock on the cam inside the case, because you could put a lock on the case, but they're going to cut it if they want to. You could put a TSA lock on it. Yeah. But he's like, just so if they get in there and they open that bow up and they want to draw it, they can't. I was geez.
No one could pull my bow back, so I don't have to worry about that.
It's a Cam Haines 80 pounder, 100 or whatever it is. So I didn't even think about that, but it's like, oh my goodness. I hope that doesn't happen.
So bad for him.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. So, well, I appreciate the advice. I'll text you out as we're in camp and see how things are going for you guys.
I don't know how. Well, I appreciate that, brother. I don't know how good the advice is. It's really just. If I called it advice, then it would probably be wrong. So I'm really, when I say those things, like I said a moment ago, I'm really speaking to myself first. It's like, I got to get in that mindset, man. You can't waste too much time thinking about it, or you'll never get it done. You got to get out there and just do it.
I've thought about that a lot recently, because that's typically my downfall. If I look at Mark and Terry and their hunting styles, Terry's is a very passive style, and that's what I grew up with. Mark's has always been a very aggressive style, whether he used to go out west or mule deer hunting or, whitetails, turkeys, very much turkeys. Like, they have much different styles, and I thought about it a lot. It's like, on a hunt like this, you're going to be lucky to get one chance. And
Yes.
you basically have to be ready to do it. Take the shot, put yourself in position because you're not going to get another chance, most likely.
Yeah. You have to assume that.
That's right.
And so you kind of, like you said, got to get mentally prepared to make it happen when you get a chance to make it happen. And hopefully I can do that.
Yeah, you literally, I cannot say this enough. In closing, let me say this. I cannot stress enough, personally for me. Now, everybody's different, and this mindset is not going to work for everybody because everybody's different. But for me, I cannot stress enough how important it is to put the winning attitude into your brain and into your heart. If you don't have the winning attitude, like if the elk hunt was a ball game, I'm going in, just like you mentioned, Jim told me earlier, I'm going into this ball game not to play this ball game. I'm going in to win this ball game, period.
Yeah.
I'm going in to beat the game. That's the mindset that I have every time I go into the field to do any kind of hunting. I'm going to have a good time, but I'm going to win. Make no bones about it.
Let's go. I'm jacked up, Chris.
Let's win.
I'm about to run through a wall right now.
I can't wait.
I wish maybe I just need you to call me on the hunt. Hey, real quick, can you give me a pep talk?
Yeah, we're gonna run through some walls, Matt. Get ready.
Let's go.
Breathe in, breathe out.
Let's
You're
go.
smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like you.
That's right. That's right. I was
Stuart
just thinking
Smalley.
that. Yeah,
Heck
that's
yeah.
right. Well, Chris, man, we appreciate you. Best of luck on the hunt. Best of luck on the rest of the season. Hopefully, we get a chance to catch up. Somewhere throughout all this and get together. But we really appreciate having you on and you coming on. And Jesse, tell him congratulations. We're really pumped for him.
Yeah.
I will. He's looking forward to being with you guys. And hey, let me know if you want to come to those shows this weekend, Tim. No problem.
We're there.
And,
Yep.
You just text me, Matt, give him my number.
Yep.
You guys take it easy. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for listening to the stories. I hope they were cool, and I appreciate you guys letting me share in the hunting world, man. I love hunting. I love conservation, and it as you know, it's near and dear to my heart in a real way. So I really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
We appreciate you spreading that good word. Hunters are good people.
I'm ready to go. Like this is a
You're
great
jacked up.
kickoff. Yes.
Season starts Sunday, right?
Yeah, I may be out.
Well, I know you're going to be
It's going to
out.
be 82 degrees, but
I know you'll be out. So.
We're going to do big things. We're going to go. We're going to
right.
shoot a deer.
All right. Well,
You got to speak it into existence, or it won't happen. I believe it.
that was your issue last
That
year.
10-pointer. I was doing a lot of talking last year.
And the year before.
Yes. All right. We need to stop.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Until next time, everybody.
Hey, see you guys.
Yep. Appreciate you all. Peace out.
See ya.
See you.
Take land management to the next level with DeerCast's exclusive virtual rain gauges. Pinpoint accuracy and historical data, all powered by industry-leading ag weather services. DeerCast has the tools to keep you ahead of your game.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.